I've got 12:02. I've got 12:02. I think my computer's a few minutes early. I mean, like 3 minutes early, but I think we can go ahead and get started. People can join us if they come in late, that's fine. Well, I want to welcome everybody to week 16 of our webinar series, Illegal Drugs and Opioids in Indian Country. My name is Stacy Eagle Elk. I'm the Tribal Opioid Response Program Manager. This webinar series, this 18 weeks webinar series, is made possible through funding from SAMHSA. We want to give them a huge thank you. I want to thank our Native Connections, our Great Plains Native Connections program in Crow Creek. They're helping facilitate and provide this through their Facebook page, Hochoka, Humpati Hochoka Agdi, HHA. Our Great Plains HPOG program, and also our Great Plains Epicenter. Brooke is helping to facilitate our Great Plains Facebook page and providing us our Zoom. A few housekeeping questions, and Sandy, I'll ask you how you want to do questions. Would you want people to put them in the chat? Do you want to raise their hand or?
Put them in the chat.
Sounds great.
And if I miss a question, just somebody prompt me.
Okay. For those of you on Facebook, if you'll just put them in the comments, then Brooke or Maddie or Haley will let us have those comments. Like I said, this is week 16, domestic violence and elder abuse. Our presenter today is Sandy Bursey. Help me say your last name. Bursey, who is the Keeper of Medicines, is an enrolled member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa. She is wholeheartedly dedicated to her work as the executive director of First Nations Women's Alliance and believes that one day we will eradicate violence. Sandra has a Master's of Business Administration from Gonzaga University, right?
Gonzaga.
Okay. And a Bachelor of Social Work from the University of Mary. From a biological perspective, Sandy has 4 daughters, 1 son, 7 granddaughters, and 4 grandsons, and 1 great-granddaughter. What a blessing. From a heart perspective, she has innumerable children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Sandra lives a humble and traditional life with her love, Rick. Though admittedly, she often finds herself in the middle of critical issues where she feels she must stand. She loves water and rocks, flowers and plants, birds and bears, and all things provided by the Creator. Thank you, Sandy, for joining us today, and we look forward to your presentation.
Okay. Bonjour, everybody. Kagane dangmash kiki kwe dijnakas. Wabshkima kwadudem. Anishinaabe kwe Mikanakwa Waju in Dunjaba. I said that my name is Keeper of the Medicines. I'm from the Bear Clan, a polar bear. I consider myself an Anishinaabe woman, and I come from Turtle Mountain. That's where I come from, and that's where I'm at right now, actually. So I moved home about right before COVID. I asked my board if I could work from Turtle Mountain because my mom needed care, and here I still am. So I'm gonna pray. I'm gonna just do a quick smudge. This smudge we call it 4 Direction because it has sage, cedar, sweetgrass, and tobacco, and we mix it all up, and so we have all the big hitters in there. And then I also, if any of you have water, I have water here that I'll be smudging, but you don't even have to smudge water to make it your medicine. All you have to do is ask it to be your medicine. So I'll say a very, very quick prayer. Try to do that before anything I do, so I do it in a good way. So I say, Tukashala, Gitchumanadu, Creator, Grandfather, I come before you in total humility to just ask for prayers for everybody in this circle. Circle, you know, we consider when we're gathered in a circle to be a sacred time, and you know, as although we're in square boxes on Zoom, this is a circle. I imagine you all within a circle with me. I want to ask for special blessings for my sister, Mona Rencounter, who's on the call. I'm so glad to see you. And for Stacy, my co-worker, who supports me in all ways that I need to be supported. And I'm so glad she's here. I always pray for children in foster care and out-of-home placements. I always pray for our veterans, those who are serving our country, for frontline responders during this horrendous time of COVID, and they're always doing hard work. And then I also especially pray for all our elders that are, you know, if they're lonely, if they're not in good shape, physically or mentally, spiritually, any of those areas, I humbly ask for you to look down upon them. I want to smudge my water, be my medicine. Water is life, right? So I'm smudging my water. And just thank you, Creator, for everything that you've given us, given me. I love all the gifts and blessings that you give me. Right now, I'm so grateful that my son is here from Montana for a couple of days. Thank you, Creator, for bringing him home, and him having survived COVID over in a place where there was quite a bit of COVID. So make what, Creator. All right, now I have to put my glasses back on. Oh, I can see. So I'm gonna, today we're talking about, and if you have any questions, please ask. Some of this PowerPoint, let's see, how do I get it? There it is. I'm just trying to get my screen straight, you guys. So right now, well, hold on. Does that look okay, Stacy?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, so we're talking about elder abuse, and one of the first things that I always think about when we talk about elder abuse or elders is, we have a different, we look at sometimes, like we talk about elder status, like when are you an elder? When are you considered an elder? And like I always think that sometimes you might just be old. You're not exactly an elder if, I hate to say that, but, an elder is I guess all people are, no matter, even if they're not very, I should have went there. No, you guys are like, what is she talking about? But sometimes there are more elders who are more maybe spiritual and cultural, and they're leaders in our community. And that, those are who we really, really try to treat as elders. But I did run into a man the other day that he is homeless, obviously missing a leg, and he needed food. And he's my elder, and I treated him just like I would treat anybody that I saw. So anyway, so, there's a definition of elder abuse. I'm going to kind of read off my screen, but kind of not. I don't like to do that because you all are going to get this PowerPoint. We are funded, First Nations has different funding sources, but our primary funding comes from the Office of Violence Against Women. As we've operated under an OVW grant through the Department of Justice. So all of our work we share, and we're all like that. If we got those federal funds, then we also borrow each other's materials because they're developed a lot of times through federal funding. So this work is being done through the Department of Justice. But anything I say can and cannot be held against me in a federal court. No, there's a disclaimer that I should have up here, but don't. Elder abuse, also called mistreatment, senior abuse, abuse in later life, abuse of older men and women is a single or a repeated act or a lack of appropriate actions occurring within any relationship where there is an expectation of trust, which causes harm or distress to an older person. And we all know that elder abuse is not a traditional value in our Native communities. It's the opposite, that we really were raised to treat our elders very respectfully. There are treasures. And now, like, where the baby boomers are the big generation that, and we outnumber the baby boomers we outnumber the other following generations. So there's, I think now, more elder abuse than there ever has been because there's so many people to take care of that need help. And so often the services are not there. Traditionally, it says elders hold positions of power in their community and were prized for their experience and wisdom. Many tribes continue to hold elders in high esteem as a valuable link to their past and as a resource for future generations. So unfortunately, elder abuse occurs with an alarming frequency. I think, like I said, because the baby boomers are the, it's a huge population. We weren't called baby boomers for nothing. So there's a lot, there's a lot of people that need care. So it's happening in bigger numbers. Nationally, neglect is the most frequent form of elder abuse, so that, emotional and psychological abuse, financial and material, and abandonment are the next most common forms. Adult children are most likely to be the perpetrators of abuse. Spouses, other relatives, grandkids are also likely to be the perpetrators of abuse. Some tribal service programs providers have estimated that close to 80% of those abusing Native elders are immediate family members, and that 10% of those are extended family members. Which isn't that a horrible statistic? So I just threw this into this PowerPoint just this morning. I don't know, I was just sent it, so I thought, you know what, that's really interesting. I can't unfortunately say it's who it was created by. Chante Teza? I know I got Chante right, but next part I don't know. So I'm not going to go through this whole chart, but it talks specifically about the cycle of elder abuse on Pine Ridge, and I think that this is the cycle of elder abuse on every reservation. And it starts with like promises and excuses. It goes through a quiet period. Where systems, like if something horrible happens, that's, everybody kind of, this is like your typical abusive relationship dichotomy. So then we do business as usual. There's growing tension, which triggers events, and then you get back again to flagrant abuse, escalating escalating violence, and then then it goes to public outcry, and then it starts all over again. So there's really just a cycle of abuse, and it's horrible. Sometimes we put these graphics in and I'm like, ooh. So this is more explanation of like what we look at as abuse. The use of physical force, physical abuse is force that results in bodily injury, physical pain or impairment. It can include, but is not limited to hitting, beating, pushing, shoving, shaking, slapping, kicking, pinching, and burning. All unimaginable things. If they're, those things hurt. If they're happening to you, they hurt a lot. Sexual abuse, which is an unbelievable thing, but non-consensual sexual contact of any kind with an elderly person is considered sexual abuse. If they're incapable of giving consent, that's also a form of abuse. It includes, but is not limited to, unwanted touching, any type of sexual assault or battery, such as rape, sodomy, coerced nudity, and sexually explicit photography taken, like porn. Let's call it porn. That's what sexual abuse is. I'm going to tell just a really quick story. When I was younger, I was in AA, and I had a group of friends that we did a lot of things together. And one day, I find out that somebody who I thought he was a really, I didn't think anything was wrong with him. He was handsome, all these things, non-native in this particular case. And he's not coming to meetings anymore. And so then I was like, don't worry, well, what happened to, this guy? And they said, didn't you read about it in the paper? And he was a truck driver, and he'd been going around the state and raping women around the age of 80 and 90 years old. And I think he's still in prison. So, I was just like, they look like just anybody. And I would go for walks with him, but I was young. I wasn't his target. So, I'm like, I'm glad I never took him home to my mom, just to meet, because my mom used to come to visit a lot in Bismarck. Neglect, refusal, or failure to fulfill any part of your obligations to them as an elder. It can include failure to for your fiduciary responsibilities to care for an elder, which means take their money, allowing their money to be exploited. Its neglect includes failure to provide anything that they need: food, water, clothing, shelter, medicine, comfort, personal safety, essentials, anything that you need for a good quality of life. Not doing that. I even think I don't know if it says that, but even like failure to provide love is, to me, neglect. So financial, material exploitation, the illegal or improper use of their funds, property, or assets, cashing, their checks without their authorization or permission, forging their names, misusing or stealing their money or possessions. How often does that happen? Coercing or deceiving them into signing any kind of document. We've all heard stories about that towards their end of life, in comes, in comes somebody and has them redo their will. And then, then you got family members that are really upset, and because they're not making the right decision, or a informed decision at the time. The improper use of conservatorship, guardianship, or power of attorney. I got to tell you guys, just so you know, I am caring for my mom. I'm 59, going to be 60. She is 79, going to be 80. And some of this hits really really close to home. I've joined personally. I joined a support group to help me to be able to be a better daughter, a better provider. I lose my patience. I'm probably rolling my eyes, doing things that I know darn well that I shouldn't. And so, I've had to make arrangements with my family for some respite. So like during COVID, I was here 24/7 and strictly guarding the door. Nobody came in, nobody went out. But since then, now I can have family help me out. And it helps so that none of this happens, because it could easily happen. Emotional abuse, psychological abuse. It's, the infliction of anguish, pain, or distress. It includes verbal assaults, threats, intimidation, humiliation, harassment, treating them like an infant, isolating them. Even sometimes I think moving, like say, you like moving them from their home communities. That could be a form of emotional, and because even as when we're young, moving is hard. It's one of the hardest things. So moving them, I don't know, it depends how you did it. Maybe they want to move. Social isolation, giving them the silent treatment. Oh, medical, you guys all, if any of you live on a reservation, that this is happening. And I think IHS has done a pretty good job of trying to minimize the medical and prescription abuse. So taking their painkillers, using any of their medicine, even, people who don't have money might even steal their metformin or their diabetic medications, but primarily anything for taking their painkillers or anything they're taking for pain it happens frequently. Yeah, so prescriptions, it says like using prescription for fraud, doctor shopping, at like having them go in and pretend like they're more severe pain than they are. People do that. Some of that stuff I couldn't even think of. Abandonment, deserting of them by any individual who has the responsibility for providing care, or for anybody who's in physical custody of an elder, abandoning that, just leaving them. Self-neglect, that's like if the behavior of them threatens their own health or safety and you let that happen, that's considered self-neglect. It usually manifests itself in an older person as a refusal to provide care for themselves, to make the guy that I talked about, the homeless guy, that's sort of like self-neglect. We have homeless camps on Turtle Mountain. I met a guy and he has a house. He's not homeless, but he still chooses to live outside with his friends because they're doing drinking and stuff like that. So like I'd consider what he does somewhat self-neglect. He makes a choice to put himself in a situation where he's, doesn't have food, doesn't have, he's not warm at night, even though he has a house. it says self-neglect excludes a situation in which a mentally competent person who understands the consequences makes a conscious and voluntary decision. Yeah, we have people who do make conscious decisions, and we have to sometimes. My mom is kind of like that. We have to, and she has a nice retirement. She's not, she has retirement plus Social Security, and she chooses, and she says, it's my money and it's my choice. And she gives a lot of her money away to either the church or to her grandkids. And sometimes really appropriately and sometimes not so appropriately. But it's her money. So we just have to be like, okay, mom, but still try to keep, when it does get to the point where maybe, she's maybe incurring charges from the bank because she ran out of money. That's happened before, then we might have to step in. But we would do that through, we would do that through tribal court, and there's 6 of us, and we would make a decision as a whole family, including her. We don't exclude her in decisions that are about her. Spiritual abuse it's defined as a harmful interference with their spiritual growth, including the corruption of another person's value system. This can become could become an issue, especially I think now with like the boarding school era. Our elders. A lot of elders are. They were, or they're a result of boarding school, and so different religions are really, like my mom. She's very, very, very strict Catholic. She went to Catholic boarding school. Even though she did traditional stuff in the past, she's like forgot that part. She doesn't really remember, and now she just wants wants church and those kinds of things. Now I could say I'm a traditional mom, so I don't want you practicing that. I'm not going to help you practice that. I could say that to her, but I don't. Because that would be spiritual abuse, not allowing her to practice what she, feels most comfortable with. So I support her, even though I prefer to practice traditionally. I'm down there saying a rosary with her because it helps her feel better. Helps her feel, in fact, it helps our whole relationship be better. So I'm like, yeah, I'll say the rosary. What it takes usually 10 minutes at the most, 10 minutes at the least, maybe 30 minutes or 45 minutes at the most. But then she wants that chance to talk too. So I do that for her. And it makes things go so much smoother between she and I. Researchers have found a strong correlation between poverty and elder abuse. A study revealed that poverty, unemployment, when we're overwhelmed by our own responsibilities, how can we possibly care for another person's things? So it's just like with your children. Now they're your elders. When you're not doing good, they're not doing good. So that's pretty big. Native people have also listed alcohol abuse, substance abuse, and a turning away from cultural values as a cause of them, inflicting elder abuse and neglect. Now there's different levels of prevention, primary, secondary, and tertiary. So like primary prevention involves like what we're doing right here, education of everyone about what elder abuse is and how to prevent it. I'm sorry, I'm talking probably too fast, and I got to make sure and watch my time. Secondary prevention involves work done with elders who are at risk. You would think that would be primary prevention, but this includes a range of preventative measures such as fall prevention or safety, scans of an elder's home to set up ways to prevent exploitation. And tertiary is how to prevent elder abuse that has happened to someone um, before from happening again. Let's see if we talk more about that. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to the secondary prevention that setting up ways to like what did they call that? A safety scan. I have been trying to get a safety scan done of my mom's house, and I have not been able yet. You know, we just started because COVID's just not letting up. But I haven't been able, our county says it's the tribe's responsibility, and our tribe doesn't have this. If they have it, I can't find it. The program where people would come in and help, because she doesn't always believe me. My mom thinks that I'm trying to like change something, you know, just because, you know, I'm like, if you fall and hit your head on that computer desk, which is right by your bed, you know, you could kill yourself. You know, can we move the computer desk over here? Can we do this? You know, there's ways to make things safer. And she's just like, no, just leave it. I'm like, so I think if somebody else came in, she might listen to them, because then, you know, they'd be like, that's their job, and they'd be more official. It says little, our slide here says little is known about how widespread elder abuse is in Indian country. I think that we're, you know, that we're knowing more and more and more, we find out. A lot of times there's no structure or coordinated systems to serve as protection and prevention and support for elderly people. I'm finding that is very true on my where I live right here. I hope that other places are doing better. I've seen Facebook posts, like I posted something about Meals on Wheels, because we thought if we got Meals on Wheels for my mom, and we don't need it because I'm here and I can cook, but she doesn't always like what I cook. And so we thought, well, Meals on Wheels would, and she's served our community for most of her life, you know, and she has children and grandchildren who are our community, you know, really strong in the community. So to me, a meal for my mom is not too much to ask for. So we got Meals on Wheels. I put a post up, and I had a lot of responses from other tribal members from other places, people that work in that system. And they're like, these are the things we provide. And I'm like, not so much here on Turtle Mountain. So I'm in the process of doing some, you know, bigger level changes. Hopefully helping all the elders in our community. Understanding what constitutes elder abuse is difficult, especially for elders to understand. That's one of the bigger things. They don't, I get it. They don't want to admit that somebody in their own family would treat them like that. So, that's part of why it gets to be so rampant, is that elders themselves don't, you know, they don't know, they're in denial, they're scared. You know, there's so many reasons why they might not report abuse to anybody, even in their own family, like to another daughter. Although I said my mom does not care. If she thinks I did something wrong, she's on the phone calling one of my sisters, one of my kids. I'm like, oh, Mom, quit telling everybody on everything that we do. But we usually kind of I try to be responsive to it, and also make it so I can kind of laugh, because she'll be like, Sandra cooked whatever, and she burned her head, she burned the bacon. I'm like, oh, Mom, you don't tell everybody that I burned my bacon, because she won't eat bacon, so it was my bacon. Well, yeah. So facts for this is just crazy, and I think these numbers are higher. For every one case of elder abuse that comes to light, another 30 or 24 do not. This is like across the board in any type of abuse, children, child welfare, all those domestic violence, underreported. For every one case of financial exploitation that comes to light, 44 do not. For every case of neglect that comes to light, 57 do not. And over 4.62 million reported cases of elder abuse in the United States. But we know that abuse is underreported. So just think, those numbers are huge, and so concerning. Here is, I can't see the whole thing. This is one of the power, like a power and control wheel about on domestic violence. And if you are going to get this PowerPoint in your email, if you want it, and like this is a chart that you could print off and just keep on your walls. There's violence, physical and sexual abuse. And so in each of these little pies, in the middle, it's, of course, violence is always about power and control. Really, that's, if you take everything down to it, it's about power and control. And you look at some of these things, the abuse of their dependency. So you take their walker, hide their wheelchair, try to make sure they don't have their glasses. Oh, Mom, I don't know, I can't find your glasses. Taking their dentures, losing their dentures. If anybody, if your elder that you're working with or living with or just love, may saying them, you don't have to. Like I talk to my mom, I try to say, okay, she'll come out and she'll say, I'm hungry, and she's diabetic. So I'm hungry means I'm probably going to have low blood sugar in a minute. So I'll hurry up and get her, maybe a drink and say, it'll take me a few minutes to make you some scrambled eggs and whatever, so, but to just say, well, you just wait till I have time, or I'm not going to cook supper till 8 o'clock or whatever, that's a big no-no, you wouldn't do that. So, but that would be abuse of her dependency on me. And that would not be good, would be bad. Not reporting medical problems. I've known a number of, I've heard of a number of cases where there's a grandparent in the bedroom and nobody's, making sure that they're being turned. Nobody's making sure that they make it to their appointments. They're laying there with bed sores and they die, they die from that. Ridiculing their values. Like I said, with my mom, she's very Catholic. Do I ridicule her Catholicism? No, I don't. I don't. Making fun of their values. If, I don't know what other kind of values I can't even imagine making fun of my mom's values. So, emotional abuse, humiliating, degrading them, yelling at them, insulting them, oh my God, calling them names, using silence or profanity. Y'all know, if you know me, I hate the F word. So if my kids wanted to be abusive to me, that's what they would do. They would say, they would be swearing, and it would just make me feel like I'm going crazy. Manipulation of family members, magnifying disagreements, misleading the family about this. I could easily do this because I'm the one that lives here. Misleading your family about the extent and nature of illnesses or conditions, excluding or denying access to family. Oh my God. And then forcing family to keep secrets, that's also abuse. Isolation, controlling what you do, who you see, where you go, limits, limiting their time with their friends or family, denying access to the phone or to the mail, misuse of privilege, treating. Oh, I can imagine treating your parents like a servant, making all her major. If I were to make my mom's major decisions, that wouldn't be well taken. Financial, stealing money, stealing or messing with the titles or deeds or any of her assets, any of your parents' assets, spending money without permission. This has happened. My mom gave one of her grandkids her ATM code, what the 4-digit code was, and she lived here by herself, and my niece came in during the night numerous times and stole at least $12,000 that my mom had. And she was charged with elder abuse. We do have an elder abuse code on Turtle Mountain, but nothing ever, nothing really ever came of that. But that's what she did. And even when my mom found out, she was like, no, I don't want to file anything. I gave her that, and but I was like, me and my brothers and sisters all met and tried to stop it, because it was like, we don't want her doing that to other elders either. And she has, access to other people. And threats and intimidation, threats to leave them, threats to divorce them, threaten to commit suicide if they don't give you what you want, abusing or killing or getting rid of their pets. If they really love their pets, that would be a horrible form of violence. Destroying their property, displaying or threat or says displaying, I can't read that, or threatening with weapons, like, oh, I can't even imagine that, but I suppose you could say to them that you're going to kill them somehow, not when they're sleeping, or something like that. Horrible stuff. This is another power and control wheel that I just wanted to have available to you guys. It covers pretty much some of the same things. It's talks about all the same stuff: cultural, sexual, spiritual. Man, look at those. Some of these words are just so crazy. Like, like genocide. That's our elders have gone through, boarding school, the boarding school era, or the up in Canada they call it, I think, is it the 50 or 60 scoop, doing any of those kinds of things. But this, you can again copy this and print it out. I imagine you could also contact the organization to see if they had any bigger posters. Look on this one too, and you talk about like using, like for me, if I wanted to make my mom suffer, I could say, well, my grandkids aren't going to be coming over here to see you. She loves her grandkids. She loves her great grandkids. She even has my great grandchild is her great great grandchild. So we have a 5 generation, and she loves that little girl, and that little girl loves her. So if I were to ever say, well, you haven't been behaving, so you're not going to see any of your grandkids, that would be really like you considered like terroristic, using children, when that's like such a part of our culture. one of the things in it, like if you look in this, in the, I don't know, it says patriarchy. And I think about patriarchy, we like, as the closer we're getting to like newer generations, there's like more generations are against, patriarchy, the patriarchy, big brother. And, my mom is still like, if there's rules, you should follow them. If that's the rule, just follow it. And I'm more like, well, sometimes rules have to be challenged. My mom will be like, don't, I'm like, I'm going to report them for what kind of food that they're feeding you. That's horrible. Just think about all the people who have to eat this. And she's like, oh, please, Sandra, don't start any trouble. I'm like, oh, Mom, we have to change if I have to change a whole system, that's what I'll do, so that you and all of the other elders in the community get better meals. So that's, challenging the patriarchy of a whole system. And it's not necessarily, just male, it's not male patriarchy sort of insinuates male, but just the whole like privilege and that type of thing, which could be anybody. I'm so glad, I'm so privileged to have been asked to speak with this group today, because and I think everybody is somewhat aware of elder abuse, but maybe not all the nuances that there can be in elder abuse. So creating, like culturally relevant materials, like some of the slides that were I went over earlier, providing viewers with training tools and information about elder abuse and neglect, specifically geared towards maybe like care providers, law enforcement, and elders themselves. Look at this, risk factors: female elders are abused at a higher rate than male elders. That goes back to, somewhere along the line, balance was lost. And the more we work towards creating balance, then less of this will happen. And would never want to say, well, now we're getting, people are abused 50-50. There should be abused none, that we're looking at getting away from it entirely. But women are at a higher risk, and like we know that. And I was familiar with our retirement community where there was a lot of women. The people who live there the majority were women, and there was one man that lived there that was quite the ladies' man, and was making sure that all the women in that facility that wanted any kind of special attention got it, and so that was like, he had a big pool from which to choose to mess with women. Abuse rates are, just the situation I'm in, are higher when an elder lives in the same home as their primary caregivers. Caregivers get overwhelmed by their duties and present a higher risk for abuse. Respite care or short-term interim relief for caregivers is so important. And we could, as I don't know, that's something I gotta think about that as a tribal member. What can our tribe do to help people like me who are taking care of their elders in order to prevent burnout and lessen the risk of abuse that my mother and people in similar situations are exposed to, at risk for. Challenges that tribes face. There's a lot more than the three that are here, but tribal communities have identified these three major challenges. lack of codes. And I think that a lot, like I know, I'm pretty sure Spirit Lake has been working diligently to get elder codes, the elder codes redone or included. I don't remember. And I know that Turtle Mountain has elder codes, but I don't think they're enough. So, at a macro level, that's what we can do for our elders and for ourselves, because we're eventually, hopefully, going to be an elder, that we can make sure that codes address the major issues, like, especially like financially, those kinds of things. A lack of policies or procedures for tribal agencies to handle elder abuse and neglect issues. Our tribes, and I get it. We have so many issues, drugs and alcohol, human trafficking, issues with school systems. Every system has issues. Foster care, so making sure that our elders are considered at the forefront really should be one of our goals, because that's what we say, that's what we espouse, is that elders should be cared for. They have top priority. Oftentimes I don't think that's always the way that it goes. So, and an increased need for training on elder abuse and neglect. And even I guess I would, one of the things, just like from what I'm talking to you right now, is I would even say like for caregivers to have available training for us, that like how to transfer, how to set up, like, I don't know, transferring is can be a really big issue. And I mean like physical transfer from a bed to a chair, from the standing up into the bathtub, those kinds of things. That would really be great if I could get some training. Luckily I have had training working with people with disabilities, so I know some things. But my mom has got different issues, like bone, osteoporosis and bone issues. So training would be really good. And there are programs that are working on that, so I'm really grateful for that. Community outreach and education are key components for for components of abuse and neglect prevention. Elder centers are important. It's an important tool, and encouraging people to get together, letting people get together and talk about their issues. On Turtle Mountain, there is a group of elders who are becoming more active again now that COVID is over, and they're a tough group, man. Those guys, they stand together, and they address issues to the council, and oftentimes are, I think, seen as a pain in the butt to the council, but it's like, what, you guys deal. These are your elders, so. And then also have activities for them, which can include like Meals on Wheels helps, bingo, community events, in-home care through IHS and Elderly Center. I just wish there was more. I know where I live, we have to do a better job at providing for our elders. Providing, I'm in an elder care support group too on Facebook, and one of the things a girl asked, her dad can't see anymore, so he can't read. He can't see, so he can hardly play games, and he can't see the TV. So it's like, what can he do? So one of the things we thought of was have an Audible. Have Audible and stored on his phone, and he could listen to stories. My mom is not ready to go to Audible. I've offered to do that for her, and she's like, no, I want to read. I want to read stories myself. And it's like, she's got one more thing that she can do for glasses, and if that doesn't work, she'll probably, have to go with Audible. And I suppose I could read to her too, but that might be something we consider, maybe having people read to her. Reporting, hopefully your tribe's programs have adult protective services. Tribal law enforcement should be notified, of course, immediately if there's any where elder abuse is suspected. They're often the first points of entry into tribal court and social services. There it says when abuse is reported, they might be able to place them in a temporary shelter or create a plan of care. All of those are processes, though, that I don't think are just like that. You're lucky if you're in a community where you could get help like that quickly. But really should be there all the time, just like it is for foster, because you're dealing with the same issues of children, and then later aged adults kind of have the same thing, feeding and sleeping and all those things. So here's some numbers. Let's see, I want to check my time. It's 2:00. Is there, I see, we have some resources next. When you get the PowerPoint, you can look at that. But I'm gonna look. Would adult grandkids, one of the questions, I'm gonna read it out loud. Would adult grandkids dropping off their kids at grandma's, who is very elderly, be considered as abuse? As in dropping off your 5-month-old baby and 2-year-old for hours. Grandma says it's okay, right? But she's really not capable of taking care of kids. Who, I wish I knew that how to do a poll on here. We could run a poll and say who, I know there's capability of that, but who all knows of this particular situation. I always tell my kids now, I'm getting, like I said, I'll be 60. I'm like, can't babysit like I used to. I never, and which is really true. Like sometimes I'm just like, I work a full-time job, and by the end of the day, I'm wiped out. I don't have the capability to chase kids around anymore. You have to be able to get on the floor and do all those kinds of things. So yeah, I'd consider that as that's abusive. And it's not, in this particular case, not only abusive to the grandparent, but abusive to the children, because you're putting them in a situation where they could get hurt because grandma or grandpa, or they can't take care of them. So really everyone in that situation is in some sort of danger should anything happen, and that's, think about that, what if just a couple weeks ago here at my mom's, we had an electrical fire in the furnace. Thank goodness, I went to emergency dental. There was 2 other adults in the house who smelled the fire and were able to, contact first the fire department and then electricians. The fire was down in the furnace. And, but if she was here alone with children, there would most likely the house and, perhaps her would have burned in a fire, because there wouldn't have been anybody that, if they're that young, they most likely don't. Put a question in chat. Can I see it? I probably can. Sorry, you guys, I sort of forgot about this. Can you please make me a panelist? I don't know.
I think what she said, Sandy, is an area of concern is that the grandparents take care of the grandchildren in a voluntary situation, and the parents continue to receive the financial benefits of one type or another. When this is reported to as elder abuse and there is intervention by officials, the parents demand the return of the children so they can keep getting the financial benefits.
Right.
This
right.
often puts the children back in a substance abuse environment. The grandparents usually won't say anything as they want the children to be safe with them. Any ideas on how to break this cycle?
Oh, well, one thing is that you would have to, I would try. And now, remember in the good old days when you used to be able to go to tribal court and get an involuntary commitment order just like that, and off the drug user, alcohol user would get sent to treatment? Not like that anymore, right? But there's a process and it might take time, but that's one of the things I would recommend is filing your 960s or whatever type of report for the abuse or neglect of a child, and reporting it to if you have an adult system. But yeah, that's so common. That's like way common because they know they're the ones that are protecting, like the only line of protection for their grandkids. Happens all the time. So you have to get the process started to get your children into treatment or get them taken away and permanently placed with somebody who can take care of them and who will recognize that the grandparent is an important component of their life. Sometimes, and some places have grandparent laws, but a lot of them don't. So grandparents oftentimes are, just have to, it's a process. They have to be, yeah, that's a tough question. Gosh. Oh, Brooke, I know that's not the perfect answer. I don't know if there's any other way to see the chat or if there are any more questions. We did this, the reason we did this presentation was a couple of years ago. The South Dakota, well, it's not South Dakota, it's the Great Plains Society, Women of North, oh gosh, I can never think of Carmen O'Leary's things. Native Women's Society of the Great Plains were the ones, I think, that were going to do the presentation initially, and then they couldn't do it. And then one of our programs, Sadie's from MHA, was going to do it. They couldn't do it. And so I'm like, yeah, we can do it. And it worked out so that we were down in South Dakota on May 5th too. So I got to go onto Pine Ridge and join an event there. But anyway, we ended up doing this conference in Deadwood. And we talked at that conference, we talked also about some other things like trafficking and sexting. And I don't really want to go into that. I don't know if you guys have already talked about that, but it only becomes an issue if for elders, for elder abuse, is if people are, one of the things my mom has done innumerable times, and right now both her credit cards are frozen, is because she'll give her credit card number to one of her grandkids that's like living away and not in a good situation, and she feels sorry for them, and she'll give them her card, and there goes hundreds, possibly even more money than that. So that's social media, there's that component available to elders, that to all of us, that we never had before. So even as far as not knowing what's not appropriate to post, that they might be sexting unknowingly, or just like, there's so many ways that elders can be taken advantage of now on and through social media. So that's one of the things. Somebody wants, let's see, is there another question?
Actually, I think somebody raised their hand and there is 2 comments in the Q&A box.
Okay. Mona, does everybody see the question and answer box, or should I read it? Can everybody see it? And then what do I do with raised hands?
Probably unmute the raised hands. Actually, we'll ask you to keep it muted unless you're speaking. But Brooke, can you unmute everyone? I can read these comments from Mona. It says Crow Creek Tribe in South Dakota has an awesome tribal elder code. However, when an adult was arrested for elder abuse, they had to stay in jail for a long time as there wasn't a bond in the code. Also, at times, the elder is an abuser when younger and young children grow up. They held the abuse inside their body and it comes out one way or another. The Tribal Law and Order Committee are looking at having a tribal moderator to work in the home to heal instead of traumatic arrest or jail.
Right. That's like, I think that like one of the things that that we're, like really looking at First Nations and as tribal coalitions as a whole is a different way of programming, of working with people, because there's so much healing that's needed, and how we get there, it's I believe so much in prayer and creator, and like those are the ways, I tell people, if you have a question, go to bed with it in your heart and in your mind, and in the morning, creator or one of your helpers will have found a way to answer that question. That's how much I believe. So like, and know that it's true, because I've gotten many answers to many questions by just asking and waiting for a little while to get the answer. I'm crazy like that.
Stacy, if you don't mind, this is Brooke. Douglas has his hand raised. He also commented, I don't have a question. However, I'd like to thank you for taking care of your mother. All say they will help, but only takes one of the family. Only takes care of one of the family.
This is my brothers and sisters are all, praise God, coming in and taking shifts. But my mom knows who will do what. So like if and my mom has dementia, so she doesn't always remember, and she'll tell somebody to like maybe move something or throw something away that belongs to me. I'm like, so we have rules, like, or guidelines, I guess, that I ask everybody that comes in here that provides care to read, and then to add to if something comes up. And, that includes if mom asks you to throw something away, it might be mine. So just put it on the side and then let me make sure it's not something like I had a pile of rocks, and some of you will know what, like why rocks are so cool. I think in my thing, it says I like water and rocks. I collect rocks, and they have meaning to me. And she had my sister move all my rocks. I was like, so now I have to find another spot for my rocks, because she doesn't want them where I had them on a shelf. But it's just the way it is. So I appreciate you saying like thank anybody who takes care of relationships are hard, whether they're with elders or another person. Relationships are hard. They're hard work, and we have to just try to love one another and be patient and prayerful and mindful and all those things that that help us. Does anybody, are there any other questions? I don't think so. I sort of feel like I went through that too fast, but um, that's all there is, unless somebody wants to talk and ask questions.
I have a question, Sandy. This is Stacy.
Mhm.
So like at what age would you start considering someone to be an elder?
Well, at Old
Like
Main and
my
Devils,
kids are always like, you can't do that, you're too old. But
I said
I'm not really.
at Old Main in Devils Lake, you had to get food off the senior menu. You're be 55, but we're involved with Spirit Lakes elder abuse. They have a grant, I think, through OVC, and an elder is considered 50 in that program. If anybody 50 and above are considered elders and eligible for services through that program. So I don't, and you know what? This is what I think on that too, is that like say in our native communities, sometimes people live to be really old, right? But our average age of life, that the norm or the median age or whatever is probably lower in some areas um, due to whatever, could even be due to the soil. Like they say that the soil in North Dakota is similar to that of Finland, and that's why so many North Dakotans have diabetes. Now, could I prove that? I don't know, but that just your environment could make a difference, and so the age of an elder could in your community be 40. Like you're one of the you could be one of the oldest people in mostly, in your tribe, depending upon what your community is like. So I don't know. I've seen people like, well, probably 6 or 7 years ago, I was a trainer for the Native American Training Institute in Bismarck, and there was Facebook then, and this girl posted, I got the honor of meeting a Anishinaabe elder, I think she said today, and I was so grateful, blah, blah. I was like, I wonder who she met. And then after a while, I was like, she's talking about me because I let my hair go gray, But I was like 50, early 50s then, maybe 52, 53. And I was like, oh my God, she thinks I'm an elder just because whatever. But so it was like all offended. Then I was like, well, that's all right. That's all right. So now, and I'm older than my sweetheart, right? I cougared him. And so when they call for elders to go eat, if I'll kind of read the room, and if it looks like people that I know are my age are getting up and going, I'll get up and go, and I tell Rick, you have to stay seated. You're not an elder yet. Lessens the amount of competition for the food at the table, though. So that's just a joke. I'll tell you guys something though. I went to a listening session. It was listening session for OVW and OVC. And I don't know if they're on here, and somebody were to get offended, that's they whatever. But so we go to these listening sessions, and at the time it was pre-COVID. So I want to say we were in Michigan, and there's this whole big room of tribal elders, tribal leaders, and a table full of there was one native person, maybe two sitting at that head table, but mostly non-native people. And when it was time to eat, we say elders go first, right? No matter where you're at, no matter what situation you're in, elders go first. Well, so here they say there's a buffet, and they say elders go first. And so there's, there's some elders there, that tribal leaders and elders that that are in wheelchairs, that are walking with canes. So there's some people, trying to make sure to get those people fed first. And up in the front row, they were all getting served their meals. The people who were there to listen to our tribal leaders and tribal elders. They were getting served, and I was like, so I made a comment to the Native person that I could comment to, and I said, I hope that I never see that again. That because those people were not all old, maybe some of them were, but they were all getting waited on, and little old ladies trying to go up there and make her own sandwich. I was like, that if you were listening, you would know that was wrong. Those people should have been waiting on our elders. That's how I see it. And I made a pretty big deal out of it. Then COVID hit, so I don't know when we'll ever have another in-person listening session and what that will look like. But I told everybody that was there, I'm like, this is the very last time this is gonna happen. Not on my watch, man. I don't care if you're I don't care if you're the president of the United States. You're younger, you go wait on your elder, right? Everybody say, right, yay.
Right.
But it's like, I'm sure. But we still do that at my mom's here. We line up in order of age. We tease. There's a lot of teasing, like, you're older than I am. You have to go first. So just stuff like that, or, just things like that. But my mom always gets her food first. Unless somebody, once in a while a child will get in front of her and she'll let them go, but it's her choice to let them go through. The rest of us are like, hey, your grandma eats first, and teach that. There was a time when one of my sisters, there was a period of time when you guys, maybe some of you remember, was like, children need to eat first. And I was like, hey, I worked, we had first table, second table, third table, fourth, fifth table on holidays. And and somebody said, let's let the kids go to have first table. And I was like, no way, man. I'm finally at first table. I'm staying at first table. So, I worked my way to first table. So we never changed that rule. As long as I'm alive, I'll still be at first table now. Unless there's enough older people, but in my family, I'm getting up there. One of my younger cousins are like, yep, your first table. Sandra's first table. I'm the third generation of this, of my grandparents. So I'm first table.
We have a comment in the Q&A box. You was right to point that out, Washday.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So hopefully, should something like that happen again, that there's others who stand with me, because I was quite vocal about it, and hated seeing that. So anybody got anything else? And two, you will, if you guys ever, I'm my numbers on the PowerPoint. I'm on Facebook. We have First Nations has a website, www.nativewoman.org. Stacy, I hope I'm right. We also have a Facebook page, First Nations. If you guys have any questions, we're always here. I'm getting braver going out, not as much as some people, but I do go to the store now. Praise God. I can go to the store.
Well, we have to continue to stay safe.
Yeah. So is there an evaluation? Is that what that Survey Monkey is?
Yes. So I did post the survey over in the chat box. If you could please indicate the session, domestic violence and elder abuse, that would be great. I really appreciate it. I want to thank you, Sandy, for being here with us today. If there's no further comments or questions, we can go ahead and stop our recording, and we can close our session today. Like I said, I want to thank you so much, Sandy, for